The notice came wrapped in synthetic parchment, sealed with the golden crest of the Greystone Pines HOA crossed hedge trimmers above a smirking mailbox. Elliot Carrington knew exactly what it was before he even opened it. The smell of lavender-scented authoritarianism gave it away. He peeled it open without ceremony and read aloud to the only living thing that wouldn't report him to the HOA. One-eyed squirrel named Steve, who lived under his porch. Violation, Article 3.2.1. Unauthorized. Energy barriers subject. Your Forcefield fence model, set a mark. 12. Action required. Dismantle within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in escalating fines and potential lien on property. Have a pleasant day. Of course, Elliot muttered. It violates the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. Not the planetary integrity. No big deal. He crumpled the letter and added it to the glowing pile of past citations. He'd been dinged for everything from installing a solar flare, to flexion canopy, too reflective, to hanging a hummingbird feeder shaped. Like a plasma grenade, too militant. The Forcefield shimmered silently around his lawn, nearly invisible. Unless you stared at it long enough to notice how it made the stars ripple behind it. It hummed softly, comfortingly, like a warmed blanket of charged particles. He'd built it during his time in the Orbital Peace Corps. It had deflected solar microbursts, slowed down a rogue meteor fragment, and once vaporized an aggressive, pigeon-shaped drone from Neptune's colonial scouts. It was beautiful. It was safe, and now it was non-compliant. A voice called across the street. Got the letter, Elliot? He didn't even need to look. Meredith Langdon, head of the HOA, queen of passive aggression and three-time champion of the Greystone Pines pristine property pageant, was waving from her porch. Her yard gleamed with precision-engineered grass, trimmed to subatomic perfection. A tiny drone buzzed quietly, pollinating synthetic roses. Sure did, he called back. Thanks for the personal touch. Oh, we're all just trying to keep the neighborhood lovely, she chirped. And your little bubble kind of ruins the Starlight Walk view. It's a defense mechanism. Well, we haven't had any invaders this month, now have we? She sipped her tea. 72 hours, Elliot. Let's keep things civilized. Elliot's fists clenched, but he forced a smile. The HOA's reach extended beyond reason into credit scores, surveillance reports, even job recommendations. Last time, someone resisted. His smart fridge locked shut and played HOA bylaws in a loop for 36 hours straight. So that night, after pouring a cup of herbal defeat, he stood before the control panel hidden inside his porch's flower bed. The screen glowed, set a Mark 12 active. Status, energy barrier, secure threats. Deflected, for this cycle warning, deactivation will nullify. Cloaking protocol. Elliot hesitated. The last line always gave him pause, but he entered the shutdown code, GRA10CN. The fence shimmered, pulsed, and collapsed into itself with a soft whoomp. Suddenly, the stars felt clearer. Too clear. Naked. Steve, the squirrel, hissed from under the porch, maybe in protest, maybe in warning. At 2:17 a.m., Elliot shot up in bed, heart hammering. A low hum vibrated through the walls, subtle but deep enough to shake his teeth. He rushed to the window. The street was dark, still, but across the way, Meredith's yard was glowing, just faintly like fireflies dancing over oil. Then something moved, a ripple, a shimmer. He stepped outside, barefoot. The grass was wet with dew, and suddenly felt wrong. Over Meredith's lawn, the air shimmered again, then opened, like peeling plastic wrap. For a brief second, something stepped through. Tall, insectoid, angular. Then it vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence. Elliot held his breath. A curtain fluttered in. Meredith's window? She was watching, and she was smiling, by morning. The street looked the same. The birds chirped from scheduled drone routes. Lawn bots trimmed edges with military precision. The neighbor on Lot 4 was out calibrating his driveway hologram to Arizona sunset. Just another sanitized day in gray stone pines, except Elliot couldn't unsee the ripple. Couldn't unhear that hum, and he couldn't stop staring at Meredith Langdon's backyard from across the street. It looked unchanged manicured grass, a koi pond too symmetrical to be real, and a small ornamental gazebo that doubled as her personal HOA complaint center. But now it felt off. The angles were too perfect. The shadows too straight as Elliot sipped his coffee. His smart mug scrolled a news flash. Lunar Observatory detects unusual energy burst, likely atmospheric disturbance. He snorted. Likely, sure. By noon, Meredith made her move. She came, striding down her front walkway in an HOA-issue cream blazer, clipboard in hand. Eyes hidden behind transition lenses that never quite transitioned. Elliot, she beamed, tapping her stylus. We're happy to see you've removed your barrier. Compliance looks lovely on you. Elliot forced a smile. Funny, I don't feel lovely. Kind of exposed. Now? No need for drama. Greystone Pines is a safe community. And besides your lawns, so much more. Visible now. That's what I'm afraid of. She tilted her head, smiling too long. Then, turning without a word, she walked back across the street. Halfway to her house, she stopped, whispered something into her wristcom, and a strange series of chimes echoed faintly from her backyard. Elliot frowned. That night, the hum returned. It was different this time, higher pitched, like the buzzing of cicadas through a broken speaker. Elliot slipped out of bed and onto the back porch, scanning the sky. Nothing. Then he looked across the street. Over Meredith's gazebo, a shimmering arch opened in the air, and out of it stepped something. It moved like liquid metal, limbs folding and unfolding in impossible ways. Its head door would passed for one tilted toward the sky, then toward Meredith's house. The creature reached out an arm, and in its hand was a glowing sphere pulsing green-blue, like an exposed memory core. It placed the orb gently on the lawn, then stepped back into the rift. Gone. The portal sealed behind it with a soft snap of displaced air. And Meredith. She stepped out onto her patio seconds later, in a silk robe with silver embroidery that shimmered oddly under the moonlight. She didn't look surprised, or afraid. She picked up the orb, and she laughed. The next day, Elliot scrolled through his security feed. Nothing. Just static where the event should have been. The camera that pointed at Meredith's house had shut off at 2:47 a.m. and resumed again at 3:06, completely normal. The system insisted. Convenient, he muttered. He opened the HOA portal, curious. Meredith had already submitted a lunar decorative light installation request for the orb. Approved instantly. Of course. But something stranger stood out. Several other homeowners had suddenly removed their fences, shielding nets and perimeter. Mines overnight, voluntarily, and they all lived adjacent to Meredith. The HOA called it spontaneous compliance. Elliot called it insane as the sun set again. He noticed new patterns forming in Meredith's backyard, perfect circles burned into the grass. Her koi pond now reflected stars that weren't visible from Earth. Steve, the squirrel, wouldn't go near the street. Elliot sat on his porch, watching, waiting, wondering. Then he saw Meredith again, standing at the center of her yard, both hands on the glowing orb. And the orb, it pulsed, in time with something above, something that wasn't a star. Elliot had taken to sleeping in his recliner, facing the window with a thermal scanner in one hand and a plasma kettle in the other. He wasn't paranoid, not yet, but when your neighbor's koi pond reflected planets that didn't exist, and Strange insects chittered in frequencies only dogs could hear. You adjusted. At precisely 2:47 a.m., the humming began. He was ready this time. Through binoculars enhanced with quantum blur correction, Elliot peered into Meredith Langdon's backyard. The orb was back, spinning above the grass without support. The air around it trembled like heat rising off asphalt. Then the portal opened. Not like before. Bigger, now wider, taller, crackling with violet light. The smell of ionized air hit him across the street. Elliot's teeth vibrated as a figure stepped through. Not 1.4. They emerged in single file. Thin, insectoid, their limbs fluid, bending in directions that defied biology. Their exoskeletons shimmered in fractured chrome, reflecting stars not in Earth's sky. No weapons, just presence. Their massive eyes scanned the yard as if inspecting their work. Then Meredith walked out. No robe this time. She wore a silver suit etched with designs that flickered when you looked directly at them, half ancient runes, half processor schematics. Her hair floated gently as though caught in low gravity. She bowed to them. They didn't speak. Not with mouths, not with sound. But Elliot heard them anyway. Synchronization successful. Asset 001 Meredith Langdon compliant. Gate field stabilized. Anchor seated. Expansion node viable. Interference minimal. The words thudded into his skull like heartbeat echoes. He stumbled back, hand gripping the edge of the window. The lead alien extended a three-fingered hand. Meredith offered the orb. It hovered above their palm, glowing brighter. Then dimmed as the creature absorbed it into its chest. Then they turned. Every single one of them looked toward Elliot's house. No. Through it, as if sensing him. The lead alien blinked Tiff. That's what the shudder in its facial plates was, and then the whole group stepped backward into the rift. Gone. Meredith stood motionless for several seconds before she turned and walked inside. Like it was just another polite evening barbecue. The next day, HOA enforcement drones floated slowly down the street, pausing at every house. Elliot watched them from behind polarized blinds. The drones stopped in front of his home, scanned the yard, and issued a soft tone. Compliance level, 97%. Note, Forcefield removal confirmed. Thank you for contributing to the uniform safety and appearance of Greystone Pines. Uniform safety. Elliot nearly laughed. Later that afternoon, he checked the Greystone Community Forum. Meredith had posted an update. Neighbors, our long-awaited celestial garden lighting project is underway. Please refrain from interfering with any ground formations or floating artifacts. And remember harmony through consistency. The post had 146 likes. Elliot scrolled through the comments. One neighbor claimed her rosemary plant now whispered bedtime stories. Another mentioned their cat was levitating slightly, but seems content. A third reported that her toddler had built a pyramid out of gravel and spoke perfect Aramaic for 32 seconds. Nobody seemed worried. Were they all pretending? Or were they already compromised? Elliot checked his cameras again. The one pointing at Meredith's yard was now just black. Not broken, just offline, as if the house refused to be filmed. He turned to Steve the squirrel, who stared at him with what could only be described as intense judgment. Don't look at me like that, Elliot muttered. I told you we should have left the fence up. Steve didn't blink. Outside. The air was still. Too still. No breeze, no birds. Not even the usual drone of the lawn trimmers. Then, faintly, from across the street, a whisper. Not a sound, a thought. Join us. Elliot knew things were bad when the HOA handbook updated itself. He hadn't even opened the app, just thought about its hand. The familiar HOA seal burned into his vision like a migraine. A new section materialized in shimmering gold letters. Article 7.9. Interdimensional Integration Guidelines residents are expected to accommodate non-terrestrial guests with appropriate welcome gestures, ritual spacing, and metaphysical buffer zones. Failure to comply may result in spatial folding, neighborly shame, or asset absorption. He dropped the mug he hadn't realized he was holding. It didn't shatter. It melted slowly across the street. Meredith Langdon watered her orchids with a silver can that hummed. The flowers turned toward her hand, not the sun, and pulsed softly with each drop. Her lawn no longer had grass. It had something softer, like light grown into threads. It waved at him. "Morning, Elliot." She called, cheerful as ever. "Did you get the update?" He stared. "Update? The handbook? Isn't it exciting?" "The committee met with our new neighbors, and we've got so many delightful changes ahead. Harmony has never been so transcendental." He stepped off his porch and approached her yard, cautiously. He stopped just before the property line. His instinct screamed not to cross it. "Meredith," he said, "what are they?" She tilted her head like a curious owl. "Partners, Elliot. Visitors, enlighteners. Honestly, I'm disappointed you didn't attend the welcoming brunch. They brought fourth-dimensional muffins. I wasn't invited." "Oh," she said with a shrug. "They only extend invitations to the compliant." He looked past her. A figure stood motionless in the gazebo tall. Faceless, a haze where features should be. It didn't move, didn't breathe. But Elliot felt it watching him. "Are they living here?" "Oh, not living. Not the way we think of it," she said sweetly. "They're anchored." Meredith stepped closer to him, her feet not quite touching the ground. "You could join us, you know. We've moved beyond fines now. The HOA believes in unity." His voice dropped. "You mean control." She smiled. "Same thing. Really." Back at home, Elliot shut every window and sealed the doors. Then he activated his garage scanner handheld prototype he'd forgotten to return to the Orbital Peace Corps. The readout on Meredith's lawn registered unstable gravitational layering and neuroempathic bleed. Her koi pond was now a low-level wormhole with a 72% chance of mild reality leakage. But worst of all, her house was no longer fully in this dimension. He blinked. The scanner flashed again. Half his street was phasing. That evening, the HOA broadcasted a new community announcement straight into his brain. "Attention residents. Weekly reality alignment begins at 3:33 a.m. on Wednesday. Please do not resist temporal shifts and ensure your third eye is properly hydrated. Complimentary oaths of obedience may be collected from Meredith's yard. Your compliance ensures peace. Your harmony ensures existence." Elliot laughed, a little too hard. "Oaths of obedience," he muttered, pacing. "They're rewriting the rules of the neighborhood." Of physics, Steve the squirrel dragged a scrap of paper toward him. On it, a crudely scratched glyph that shimmered faintly in purple. Elliot stared at it. "Where'd you get this?" Steve just chittered and pointed toward the tree above his house. And there, clinging to the bark like a metal spider, was one of the visitors, watching, waiting. Something was coming. Elliot didn't know what the aliens wanted from Meredith or from the neighborhood, but he did know one thing. They hadn't invited him. And that meant he might be the only one left who could still resist. Elliot hadn't spoken to anyone in Lot 13 since he moved in. Not because he didn't want to, but because the house had been empty. At least, that's what everyone said. It was buried at the edge of the development, past the pristine cul-de-sac, hidden behind pending maintenance signs and an uncut hedge. The HOA claimed it was under review for structural code violations. But now, with the Forcefield down and Meredith's yard pulsing like a neutron heart, Elliot had started seeing shadows in the windows of Lot 13. Last night, one waved. Now, he stood at the cracked path, staring up at the dark house. The roof slumped in one corner. The lawn was overgrown, not with grass, but with stiff black vines like cable tendrils. As he knocked on the door, the vines retreated, curling back as if they were waiting for permission to touch him. The door opened before he knocked twice. A man stood there, mid-50s, unshaven, wearing an old bomber jacket with a faded logo. Project Warden. Elliot blinked. "You're real. Define real," the man said. "You're Elliot, right? I've been expecting you. Have 3 words for you." The man stepped aside, revealing a wall plastered with maps. Alien glyphs, HOA regulations, and surveillance photos of Meredith. They were warned. Elliot walked inside slowly. Every step felt like entering another layer of history. Dust, oil, tools, shelves of ancient tech, some human, some clearly not. And in the center of the room, a holly table displaying a wireframe of gray stone pines. Meredith's house pulsed red like a malignant tumor. Elliot asked. "The HOA," the man said. Greystone wasn't just a model neighborhood. It was a test site, a beacon, a controlled petri dish for passive integration. Integration with what? The man tapped the red house. Them? He pulled up a file labeled Project Anchorling. A photo appeared grainy, black and white. It showed a young woman standing with what looked like an early version of Meredith, but her hair was longer. Her eyes, wrong, too wide, too deep. "She's not human," Elliot said. She was. Once, Langdon was the original contact. They touched. Her first? The HOA covered it up, hid it behind bylaws and architecture. Every compliance rule, every neighborly reminder. It's not about aesthetics. It's about weakening resistance, mental, emotional, spiritual. Elliot's mouth felt dry. So, the Forcefield was the only thing protecting your perception. You saw things because you weren't harmonized. They can't fully enter minds that resist. That's why they visit Meredith. Why they avoid you? The man paced. You ever wonder why everyone just accepts the changes? Floating. Flowers, time stutters, cats speaking Latin. It's not ignorance. It's compliance. Reality's breaking around them, but the HOA keeps smiling and adjusting property values. A new ping sounded on the holly table. Phase 2 begins tonight, the man muttered. She's opening a second anchor. In the old playground. One with a biohazard sign. He nodded grimly. It's not biohazard. It's a gate hatch. And when it opens, you won't be asking if we're alone in the universe, you'll be asking if we ever were. Outside, thunder cracked though. No clouds were in the sky. The lights flickered. Then Elliot's come-in plant buzzed. Unauthorized thought detected. Security drone en route. : the man cursed. They're on to you now. Us. No, he said, grabbing a strange rifle off the wall. They've always been on to me. But you still have time to fight. That's why you haven't joined. The brunch club of the damned. He shoved a glowing chip into Elliot's hand. You want answers. Plug that into the HOA mainframe beneath the fountain in Harmony Park. But be warned, it's guarded. Not by drones. By what used to be people. Used to be. The man only smiled. You'll know them when you see their smiles don't reach their eyes anymore. The door burst open behind them. A shadow slithered across the floor. The man raised his rifle. Run. Elliot sprinted through the midnight stillness of Greystone pines. The glowing chip clenched tightly in his fist. The grass underfoot squished oddly as if it wasn't grass anymore, but something pretending to be. Trees leaned ever so slightly in his direction, and lampposts blinked in a Morse rhythm he didn't want to decode. He passed by homes glowing with pale inner light. Families sat around dinner tables, smiling mechanically, unmoving. A child floated a few inches above her chair, laughing in reverse. No one blinked. No one saw him. Harmony Park sat at the center of the neighborhood. Perfect green square surrounded by tasteful benches, trimmed hedges, and a marble fountain, bearing the HOA's slogan, "Peace through uniformity." The fountain gurgled with thick, shimmering liquid. He knelt beside it, heart pounding, and scanned for the hidden panel the man from Lot 13 had mentioned. There, a small seam under the inscription. He pressed the glowing chip into it. The fountain shuddered and then split in two. The ground opened with a hiss, revealing a spiral staircase lit by soft, pulsing blue light. From above, it looked like a pleasant wine cellar. From below, it smelled like copper and ozone. Elliot descended. The bunker beneath Harmony Park was older than the neighborhood itself. Its walls were etched with strange symbols that shimmered and rearranged as he walked. The air buzzed with psionic tension, like he was being watched from behind his own thoughts. At the bottom stood a sealed door made of living metal. It breathed. The chip in his pocket heated up and launched itself from his hand, embedding into the center of the door. A voice echoed from the steel. "Identity not compliant. Bypass detected. Audit in progress. Elliot, TENSED." The door groaned open. Inside, a control room, glowing with alien and human tech, merged together. Monitors showed every home in Greystone Pines, each family monitored, mood-mapped, and adjusted via subliminal waveforms. Massive. Servers pulsed like hearts. And in the center, hovering above a containment field, was Meredith Langdon's original HOA application. He stepped closer. The paper was completely blank, except for a glowing seal that read, "Host accepted." A new monitor sparked to life behind him. Footage played. Meredith in the 1980s, young, blonde, talking to three men in suits beside the ruins of a black spacecraft. Her voice, calm, enthusiastic, willing. "We'll build it here, a peaceful front. We'll keep them out of the cities. Use the rules to keep them small. If people don't question the rules, they won't question the visitors." Another scene, Meredith older. The first neighborly brunch. People arriving, waving, some never leaving. Then another figure appeared on screen. The man from Lot 13, only younger, standing beside a different Meredith, arguing, yelling. "You don't understand what you're anchoring. This isn't order. It's occupation." She just smiled. Easier to control a garden than a jungle. The footage cut. Elliot backed away behind him. The breathing door slammed shut. A voice echoed through the room, not through speakers. Through his mind, audit complete. Resistance noted. Thought variance at 82%. Initiating correctional phase. The servers pulsed brighter. Screens flashed. Phase 3 initiated full anchor assimilation in T-minus 12 hours, non-compliant minds. Isolate, rewrite, absorb. Elliot slammed a fist on the console. Not happening. He pulled the glowing chip from the wall. Instantly, the lights dimmed. Systems wind. The floor trembled. Then a hidden compartment opened, revealing a glowing core pulsing with unnatural energy. At its center, something moving, trapped, beating. It wasn't a power source. It was a heart, not human, and it was angry. The moment Elliot yanked the chip free, alarms wailed not in sound, but in thought. His head throbbed with cascading warnings, each pulse like a nail hammered into his brain. Unauthorized disruption detected. Harmony threshold breached. Enforcers dispatched. The containment core before him, the alien heart, shuddered inside its field. It wasn't dead. It wasn't asleep. It was aware. And now, so was Elliot. Images tore through his vision. A garden on a world of black. Stone and white skies. Cities built of bone and glass. Creatures like Meredith, once human, now conduits, and always the heart hovering at the center of each colony, beating instructions into the minds of the obedient. The HOA wasn't just a corrupt bureaucracy, it was infrastructure for invasion, and Greystone Pines was ground zero. The chamber. Walls rippled, and he felt them closing in, not physically, but cognitively. The space folded. Elliot dashed up the stairs, clutching the chip like a torch. Behind him, the bunker groaned, and something slithered through dimensions not meant for human senses. He burst into the open air, froze. The sky was wrong, where stars should have twinkled. Eyes blinked. The moon had been replaced by a perfect golden sphere, slowly rotating. Pulsing with HOA symbols, and floating at the center of Harmony Park, was Meredith Langdon, wearing a crown made of letters. HOA covenants circled her like fireflies, whispering, "Bylaws in 1,000 languages. You shouldn't have gone below." She said calmly, "Shouldn't have removed my fence either." Elliot growled. She smiled, drifting down to the grass, though it no longer was grass. It slithered and adjusted to her feet like obedient children. "You don't understand, Elliot. Order is peace. Chaos is choice. People don't want freedom. They want lawn symmetry and predictable trash pickup." He pointed the chip at her. "You anchored them, all of them. I offered them relief, from chaos, from uncertainty, from thinking." From behind Meredith, the enforcers arrived. Not drones, not people. Twisted figures in HOA polos, with stretched faces and rewired minds, neighbors who'd gone to too many brunches and too many board meetings. Their smiles were jagged, their eyes were hollow, and they moved as one. Elliot ran, back down Sycamore Lane, past the floating flamingos, past the house that had started singing to itself, past Steve, the squirrel now armed with what looked like a spark grenade. "Hold them off, Steve," Elliot shouted. Steve saluted. The street flickered, as if caught between two renderings, Greystone Pines in daylight. Something darker, truer. Beneath Dot at the end of the road stood Lot 13. The door swung open before Elliot knocked. The man, a bloodied rifle still glowing, pulled him inside. "You woke it, didn't you?" "I think it woke me." "Good. Then we have one chance left." They descended into a basement even deeper than the HOA bunker. Maps filled the walls of their suburbs, other experiments. Every HOA community on Earth was a dot on the invasion grid. But Greystone was the seed. The anchor heart. "We destroy it," Elliot said. "We destroy the anchor," the man corrected, loading a strange crystalline bullet. "We cut the signal. Free the mines. Collapse the compliance field. If we don't, Meredith becomes the first of many. Earth becomes a branch office." Elliot handed him the chip. "This enough?" The man nodded. "This is the override key. Plug it into her crown. She'll kill me. She'll try. But you're still unlinked. You're the last variable. The last flicker of free will on this block." Elliot exhaled, then smiled. "Guess it's time to fight the HOA." Outside, the sky cracked like glass. Inside, the plan began. The streets of Greystone Pines were no longer streets. They were nerve paths glowing, shifting, channeling thought like electricity. The pastel homes had turned inside out, revealing the strange bones beneath suburban veneers. Neighborhood dogs had merged into a single growling sentinel that circled the block endlessly, barking bylaws in tongues older than Earth. But Elliot wasn't looking at any of that. He was staring at Meredith. She hovered above her front lawn, now a living map of alien constellations. Her dress shimmered like a dimensional rift, and the crown of glowing HOA glyphs pulsed with every heartbeat from the buried anchor core. Around her, compliant residents formed a perfect ring grilling fake burgers, waving in sync, reciting neighborhood covenants like Holy Scripture. Elliot stepped into the circle. Every head turned toward him. Every smile identical. Meredith floated lower, her voice silky with static. "You're late for the monthly board meeting, Elliot." "I brought an amendment." He held up the glowing chip. Her eyes narrowed. "You can't override unity. You are one voice, one cell. You'll be absorbed." Elliot glanced at the crowd, his neighbors, friends, people who once hated his Forcefield fence but had still offered cookies when he moved in. Somewhere inside those echoing minds, they were still there. He took a deep breath. "Then I reject the quorum." Meredith screamed, not with sound, but with pressure. The crown above her flared blinding white. Compliance surged through the air, warping the laws of nature around her. Elliot sprinted, the enforcers moved to intercept. But Steve the squirrel dropped from a tree, pulling pins from two tiny mind disruptor grenades. .ca-whomp.polo-shirt monsters flew sideways. Elliot leaped over a hedge that tried to bite him, rolled through a patch of lawn, whispering mortgage rates, and launched himself into the air. He collided with Meredith Midhover, jamming the chip into the base of her crown. It stopped glowing. The world held its breath. She looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time, her face wasn't serene. Was human? Confused? Scared? "No," she whispered. "You've broken the anchor." Her crown shattered into data shards. Across the neighborhood, the false sky collapsed. The golden orb cracked, revealing the real moon behind it. The synchronized grillers fell to the ground, blinking. Street lamps dimmed. The bone gleam houses exhaled as they returned to wood and drywall. The heart beneath Harmony Park let out one last pulse, then fell still. Elliot collapsed beside Meredith, panting. That override worked better than expected. The man from Lot 13 walked into the yard, dragging what looked like a psychic suppressor coil. He gave a nod. "You severed the broadcast. Her link is gone. She's just Meredith now." She blinked slowly. "I didn't mean to. I thought I was saving everyone. We were promised peace." The man looked at her with both pity and caution. "You anchored a parasite. Peace wasn't what it wanted. It wanted order. Total, permanent. Sterile order." A low rumble echoed through the clouds. Above, a rift opened, then hesitated. Beings watched through it. Vast, cold things, waiting for compliance. But they saw none. The rift shuttered and closed. The invasion was over. Weeks later, Greystone Pines was rebuilding. The HOA dissolved. Residents remembered most of what happened, and those who didn't were better off. Meredith resigned and vanished quietly. Some said she moved to a cabin. Others claimed she was still under observation by whoever monitored these kinds of events. Elliot rebuilt his fence this time without a force field, just a nice old-fashioned wood slat fence. Stu got a few dirty looks, but no fines. Steve the squirrel earned a bronze statue, and every so often, when Elliot walked past Harmony Park, he could almost hear the pulse of something buried deep beneath, waiting just in case they ever forgot the price of peace.